Bike rides from Valley Oaks to
A good transmission.
then I wrestle.
But
Okay, we are live.
we ready to start? So let's call the meeting to order the Board Administration Performance Committee. So I guess roll call.
City of Delray Oaks.
Here.
City of Greenville.
Here.
City of Monterey.
Here.
City of Seaside.
Here.
City of Soledad.
Here.
And County of Monterey. Okay, I'm sure you do have the one.
Thank you. So item 2 is public comments on matters not on the agenda. Members of the public may address the committee on any matters related to the jurisdiction of MST, but not on the agenda. There's a time limit, not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. The public is encouraged to engage in respectful dialogue that supports freedom of speech and values diversity of opinion. Failure to engage in respectful dialogue will result in speakers being muted or required to leave. The committee will not take action or respond immediately to any public comments presented, but may choose to follow up at a later time, either individually through staff or on a subsequent agenda. So is there any public comment? Anything? I don't see anything on the Zoom, so let's move on. So public comments closed. Consent agenda. Item 3-1. Approved minutes of the board administrative performance on May 12th.
Move to approve. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Terrific. Item 4, action items, review of administrative performance. Yes, sir, that's you.
That's me. I'm on. Okay, thank you. This for the month of July 2025, your monthly reports are in, and just a few things to note. Ridership continues to increase again year over year. This is about 30 consecutive months in a row since the implementation of the Better Bus Network. We noted through a press release, although you wouldn't know it by the media who don't seem to pick up our good news. As we say, I've shared with our marketing manager, good news is no news here in Monterey, it seems. But to share with you publicly the
Carl,
ridership stats for.
we actually did get some news on that.
Did you?
On Saturday morning, I was watching KSBW.
Oh, okay.
I have a little snippet. I was going to send it to you.
Well,
Not
then
busy.
my took them 3 days or 4 days, but we got there. That's good. That is good news. Thank you. We saw ridership statistics for the previous fiscal year. We were looking into it for some other purposes, and I noted that that ridership in Salinas is higher than pre-COVID. We've more than 100% recovered from looking at 2019 as a point. We're at 100%, 108% of that within the city of Salinas. And city of Salinas ridership since the beginning of the Better Bus Network used to account for about 26% of our rides, now account for 44% of our rides. So by design, with your Better Bus Network, you wanted to put service where population was the densest and where the income levels were lower, moving services from the peninsula to Salinas and the Salinas Valley. And you see that now with that proof positive that the plan has come together as suggested. A couple other interesting things to note in your report on page 59. I'm going to have to go back and check these numbers, but I'll take them while we can. I believe this is the first time since the implementation of our contactless payment systems that tap to pay fares as a percent exceeded our normal regular pass fares. That's really fantastic. So that means that is as the technology is taking off, and we're continuing to do more with that technology. Then the other thing I thought was interesting to note on page 62, if you look at our open positions for coach operators, we're below the line. We actually have more coach operators in July because of a successful training class than we budgeted for. That's a good problem for us to have after all these years, and struggling to keep up. So now our focus is on other positions, most notably in our maintenance area for recruitment. So we're doing a lot more recruitment and for maintenance positions. So that concludes administrative performance for the month. I thought those would be interesting facts for you to see.
Any questions? Seeing none, let's go to 4.2, receive state legislative advocacy update. Michelle Overmore.
Good morning, committee members. Michelle Overmeyer. The staff report is on page 107 of your full agenda package, and we are joined by Michael Pimentel. I'm not seeing Matt Robinson on yet, so Michael will give us some updates from Sacramento.
All
Good
right,
morning.
well, thank you. Thank you, Michelle, and good morning. I am going to be filling in for Matt Robinson this morning, providing the full update. I did want to just note for you that we are in the final week of the first year of the 2-year legislative session. The legislature will adjourn on September 12th and enter interim recess at that time. Will not resume their work as a body until January of 2026. In these final days, there are quite a number of major matters that are still open items. In particular, and I would say of probably highest importance, is the reauthorization of the state's cap and trade program. This is the state of California's marquee and most successful climate program that not only reduces emissions directly from major polluters directly through a market mechanism, but also invests quite literally billions of dollars annually in a variety of purposes, including public transit, both capital and operations. The program is set to expire in 2030, but the state is taking early action on the reauthorization, or I should say, intending to take early action on the reauthorization, with the goal of showing greater market certainty to those who are subject to the program, also to create longer-term investment decisions benefiting a variety of purposes, including the state's high-speed rail program. And so at this stage, we understand that negotiations are ongoing between the governor's office, legislative leadership, but as of this weekend, no deal had been reached. In order for there to be a deal that ultimately moves this year, something would have to be announced either today or very early tomorrow, so that they can have a bill in print that meets the state's 72-hour rule for having bills in print in their final form before moving to their final vote. And so this is something that we are going to be tracking. MST has been directly engaged as an agency, also through its state association, the California Transit Association, to make sure that as the program moves forward and is reauthorized, that the historic investments in public transportation continue. I'll note that your state senator, John Laird, has taken on a heightened role in those negotiations. We've, of course, had conversations with Carl Sidoric about engagement further to help ensure that our priorities are reflected. And again, we'll be providing some greater notice to you all once we have some clarity on how this matter will resolve. In addition, you've got the MST-sponsored AB 761 providing some additional authorities for MST to apply a sales and use tax within the region that is currently on the Senate floor. That bill, once passed off the Senate floor, will go back to the Assembly for what we call a concurrence vote. That concurrence vote happens in the event that there are amendments in the second house. And from that point on, will make its way to the governor. And then finally, as I conclude, we'll note for you that there are some open items still related to the state budget. Separate from the cap and trade discussion that I just noted, there is a need to move forward a budget bill to make expenditures from the SB 125 program. That is something that is underway and under discussion for finalization. And that would provide for what is the third year of a 5-year program of investments. And so I'll stop here at this time. Happy to take any questions or comments from those on the committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you for joining us this morning, Don, or not Don, but I'm sorry, what was your, Michael, thank you, Michael. Michael, could you give us an overview of what you think the status will be of any Brown Act reform? I'm just tracking your report here, and so where are we at in terms of what the outcome will be and for any new legislation signed in January?
Yeah, so where we are at this stage is that the primary vehicle for moving Brown Act reform forward is SB 707. That bill is currently on the assembly floor pending a vote. We would anticipate that the bill will be taken up over the next few days in order to meet that deadline of September 12th. And from there, because there were substantive amendments that were taken in the assembly, we'll go back to the Senate for its final vote. At this stage, much of the concern, the opposition that was raised against the bill, particularly on behalf of special districts like MST, through the association, the California State Special Districts Association, has been addressed. What they're looking to do with this body of law is to, one, provide some greater authorities for local government entities to continue to have these teleconference virtual meetings that would apply to things like advisory committees, extend those authorities through 2030. In addition, they're looking to change the ways that the public can interact with local government entities as part of those virtual or teleconference meetings. For that work, what they're looking to establish, and I'll note for you that there are some very specific parameters that apply to the application of these requirements. They are looking to make requirements for two-way teleconferencing communication as part of those virtual meetings. And I would just note for you that at this stage, the limitations are fairly significant in terms of what would be applied. In particular, they're looking for special districts that would be inclusive of the entire county. And so that's kind of bar one. In addition, there is consideration to the populations of the county. So for these new requirements for two-way telecommunication to apply, not only would you have to be coterminous with the county, but you'd have to have a population of 600,000 people or more and have a full-time employee base of 200 individuals. And so I think it's our initial scan that the application of the heightened requirements may not fall to MST, but certainly the authorities to continue on with teleconference meetings like this one are things that would move forward as this body of law gets considered by the governor. I think at this stage we do not yet know what the governor's review of the legislation will be, but certainly those are conversations we'll be having over the coming days.
Thank you, Michael. It just sounds like there's a lot of dispute in terms of what the connecting what California vast size with our various boards and commissions and outside appointments are, that the state legislation can't land on some model that's going to work for the majority of people.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of discussion through the amendments process to try to find a way to, I suppose, extend the broad authorities for these virtual meetings, while also looking to facilitate two-way communications and more direct engagement from the public where possible, where feasible. And I know that they are taking into strong consideration what are disparate resources between counties, cities, special districts of large sizes, and much smaller entities that just simply may not have the capacity for that type of engagement.
Okay, thank you. And is there any particular legislation that we're supporting yet?
At this stage, I believe it's just a watch for SB 707.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Michael, Friday, I received a phone call inquiry from local newspaper, the Carmel Pine Cone, wanting to know how SB 79 was going to impact development around transit stops in Monterey County. And I know there's been some new amendments to that, and fortunately, I just gotten off the call with you. So I was able to tell them, I know some board members from MST and some of our board of supervisors have commented about this legislation that would allow transit operators to build denser, perhaps larger developments in and around major transit stops and major transit stops. But how has that changed recently? So in case there's any board members here that have an interest.
Sure thing, Carl. Happy to answer that question. So I think first and foremost, there has been a strong effort, I would say, led by the League of California Cities to narrow the scope of the bill. And when I say narrow the scope of the bill, I mean in the counties in which the bill would be applicable. The bill now has as an operative definition the term urban transit county, which the bill defines as a county with 15 passenger rail stations or more. That serves as a first condition under which the heightened densities, the greater development intensities would be authorized. And so I think it is our read at this stage that in Monterey County, you do not have 15 passenger rail stations that would trigger the applicability of the bill. But I would note, in addition, there have been some changes to the development tiers. It's always been presented as tiers 1 through 3. Those tiers align with the height that would be authorized by right. Also, two, the level of density for the developments that would be taking place. And what they've removed from the bill is the one that even if Monterey County had applied as an urban transit county, would have applied to your services, which was a tier 3, which focuses on bus service. And so in this instance, with the introduction of urban transit county as the operative foothold for application, not applying to Monterey, and with the acknowledgement that the tier 3 definition has been removed from the bill, as a necessary condition. At this stage, we would not anticipate any impact on your county.
Great, thank you. Is there any other comments? Anything from Zoom? Well, if not, thank you so very much for your presentation. We are very grateful.
I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning.
Okay, item 4.3 is receive federal legislative update. Carl?
We have with us today, visiting from Washington, D.C., or maybe Manassas, it's hard to tell with his backdrop, Mr. Don Gilchrist.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Don Gilchrist, President of Thomas Walters and Associates, and just wanted to speak a little bit about some things that are happening on the federal level. We are really close to the new fiscal year starting on October 1, and that means the clock is really ticking on the federal appropriations process. And we are quickly running out of time. There's only 11 legislative days left when Congress will be in session to do anything on the appropriations process. And so that has made it very clear that we're going to need some kind of continuing resolution to be enacted this month in order to keep the government open and give Congress more time to finish action on the 12 annual bills. But the details of what happens next are pretty murky. The parties are quite far apart on what that would look like. And the root of the problem is the gap that exists on how much they want to spend on non-defense programs next year. President Trump proposed cutting non-defense programs by 23% this year. And as House Republicans have drafted their versions of the 12 bills, they've kind of taken a nod towards that position without going as far as the president would like to have gone. Their overall number is going to be a reduction of about 6% in non-defense programs, but that's not spread evenly. So some programs could be cut much deeper than 6%, while others might receive the same level of funding. So at the end of the day, that's a pretty tough approach for Democrats to agree to, especially since the existing current year bill was a continuing resolution that just froze spending. And so all year long, federal appropriations have been eroded by inflation because you can't do as much with the same amount of money year after year. So the Senate is taking a slightly different approach. I think MST would consider it to be a better approach, more bipartisan bills that really don't cut the programs. For the most part, they continue existing spending levels, with some programs getting small increases. But that lack of an agreement, there's no overall plan. You can't really enact these bills without an overall agreement on what's going to happen. It's really slowed the process down. There haven't been any FY26 funding bills that have been signed into law. Here we are just a few weeks from the new fiscal year starting. So in these circumstances, Congress usually defaults to a continuing resolution. If you follow federal affairs, federal legislative matters, this is not that uncommon. But there's some pretty big obstacles to overcome to get there. I think the most likely scenario is that we will see something enacted at the end of the month, but it could be a bumpy ride to get there. People are saying openly the possibility of a government shutdown is out there. And part of the reason for that is how the Trump administration has, throughout this year, taken some pretty aggressive administrative actions using executive authority to assert the president's powers over spending and other matters in a way that is a little bit unprecedented, at least in recent years, and has been pretty controversial. It's been hard for Democrats to accept this in Congress, and often there hasn't been that much they could do about it because they're in the minority. However, when you come around to enacting a continuing resolution or negotiating the funding bills, then there starts to be at least a little bit of a role for the Democratic Party in Congress. And so Democratic leader Schumer in the Senate and Jeffries in the House and others are trying to figure out how do they negotiate with the Trump White House and with congressional Republicans on this matter. Can they use the process as leverage to maybe get some reining in of what they're concerned about in the administration's actions? They're in a tough spot, though. Essentially, Democrats would have to be willing to shut down the government in order to make this negotiating tactic work. And they haven't been willing to do that so far. They're not of one mind on how to approach this for sure. Some folks definitely want to play hardball, while others don't want to see the federal government shut down. So we really don't know how it's going to play out. Right now, the leadership in the Congress is moving towards a kind of a hybrid approach where they'll try to enact 2 or 3 of the least controversial funding bills. And they'll combine that with a continuing resolution to keep things operating after October 1. If they take that approach, they still have to try to figure out how long the CR would run. It's likely to be a Christmas deadline or so. That's typically the minimum amount of time that they've needed to finish these things up. But lots of different alternatives are being talked about. I do think at the end of the day, a Christmas time frame is the most likely one. So that's, in general, the problems we're having with the appropriations process. MST really cares a lot about what happens to the transportation appropriations bill. And as far as that goes, both the House and the Senate have drafted the fiscal year 2026 Transportation, Housing, and Appropriations Act for in the committee level at least, and they've reported that out, which is progress, I guess. But neither body has been able to get it through the floor yet, and so that's really dragging the process as far as transportation funding goes. If they can't get it through on a floor vote, then that kind of weakens their ability to get something enacted into law at the end of the year. On those bills, the key issue probably for MST is what happens to FTA formula grants, and both the House and the Senate would sustain that without any cuts. That's extremely helpful to MST. But there are some problems with the House bill, which we've talked about in the past a little bit, and they would cut the FTA's capital investment grants program by quite a bit. That's a competitive grant program that MST has used in the past, and we certainly want to see that program continue. And rail programs would also be hurt under the House bill. So we much prefer the Senate bill, and as these two bills move to the floor process in the House and the Senate, we'll be advocating for the Senate numbers for sure, and hoping that we can see some progress on that. I think I should conclude at that point. Certainly tons of other things are going on in Washington, D.C., but I just want to turn it back to you to see if you have any concerns or questions that I should know about.
Good. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Being none? Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment on the importance of a continuing resolution, while it provides, the government remains open. Don, I still believe it's the case, though, that if we don't have a bill that, a continuing resolution that runs at least through February of 26, that the FTA does not release the apportionments for us to apply for our grants. So this is one reason why we carry reserves, and we have substantial and sufficient reserves. This is for funding that we've been spending since October of 24 that we're seeking reimbursement for. We don't have a budget through the end of the year to even provide that, and this could go on, as Don mentioned, through the end of the holidays season, before we have a full year budget agreement. Is that still true, Don?
I believe that's correct, and that certainly has been a message that we've had to carry to Congress over and over again because of how important it is to MST. But I do appreciate you highlighting that so the committee's aware of it.
Okay. Is there any questions from Zoom? I don't see any. So again, thank you very much for your.
Thank you all.
Okay, item 4.4, receive preliminary unaudited fiscal year 2025 year-end financial report. Lisa?
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Lisa Reinheimer, Deputy CEO for MST. This is a preliminary report for our FY25 year end. We're still going through the audit process, so keep in mind this is very preliminary, and at this moment in time, there are still some reconciliations that need to be made. But the good news is, overall, year to date, we have a surplus of 4.4 million. And as compared to FY24, that's about 450,000 less than what we had in FY24, which was 4.8 million. We are getting revenues higher than what we had anticipated, and our expenditures are lower than what we had anticipated. Some of the highlights there is that interest revenue through our money market and interest-bearing accounts came in higher than what we had anticipated, and the local transportation funds through the Transportation Development Act that gets funneled through TAMC came in higher than what they had provided as an estimate for last year. And then on the expenditure side, I guess the biggest overage we had was with purchase transportation, but the majority of that had to do with the transition between MV Transportation and Transdev and the costs associated with moving from the Joe Lloyd Way site in the former Fort Ord to the current location in Salinas at Rienda. So those are some of the highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Or have any questions?
It's a lot of money. Just tracking and keeping up. Is there any vulnerabilities in terms of any surprises that as we go through these? I know it's always revolving and we have carryovers, but any standout surprises for you?
I didn't see any. There are always, the professional and technical and legal fees, settlement types of cases that need to be resolved. I would say we need to keep track of the contracted purchase transportation services contract over the next several months and the year. Because that cost is higher than what MV's cost was, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. I don't anticipate anything unless there's, a global pandemic or, something like that comes along. So no, I don't see any surprises at the moment.
And one other question or note that it looks like there was a substantial savings on the labor side for this period. Was that attributed to what would it possibly be attributed to if we budgeted that amount? We were short, and so that was a savings of 1.258 million, right?
Yes. So on the labor side, of course, like you're alluding to, we were not able to be fully staffed in all of the departments for the fiscal year. Of course, right now we're over budget, like Carl mentioned, but overall under budget in staffing. And then the associated benefits that go along with it. We did get an actuarial study done recently that helped to lower our expense on the benefits side. So that was a good thing. If we're able to fully staff, then we're going to have a deficit for this current fiscal year. But that didn't happen last fiscal year.
We always budget for full employment.
Right.
We rarely get there.
Right. Yeah. So it's allocated, it's budgeted,
Yeah.
but we have some ongoing vacancies, so it's carryover. Yeah.
Always turnover in the
Yeah.
drivers, people retiring, people moving on, and it's just it's easier just to say we're gonna be fully employed.
Well, yeah, that's the budget, the budgeting stability that you've got to have.
Right. The other variable, of course, is the price of fuel. And that's difficult to predict. But it's been fairly steady lately. So
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, a Middle East conflict that increases the price of fuel, and there you go.
Manufacturer down for updates and
Right.
throws everything out of whack.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on Zoom? Seeing none. Item 5 is closed session. There is no closed session. So at this time at 9:33, let's adjourn until 10.